Welcome home, my friends, to the North Star Within podcast. I'm your host, Britt Ward, holistic life coach, licensed massage therapist, Reiki master, and personal development advocate. Let's dive into today's topic. What do you know about instinct and intuition? You might be saying, come on, Britt, I know all about instincts and intuition. So I ask you to be patient, stick with me, and you might be surprised, as I was, to learn there are some interesting bits of knowledge about these topics I was not aware of. If nothing else, this can be a nice reminder to help solidify the knowledge that's already there. I don't know about you, but I can definitely benefit from a kind reminder of what I know I already know, especially during moments when mind traffic seems to be incessant. But before I begin, I want to share a few stories with you that I found online about people's experience with intuition and instinct. So the first one comes from, forgive me if I butcher this name, Rohasi. So Rohasi says, I never call out of work. It's a weird point of pride for me. But one day, I just had a really weird feeling. I decided to call in sick and stayed home with my boyfriend. I just had to. About an hour after I would have left for work, my boyfriend experienced a grand mal seizure. He'd never had one before and stopped breathing. I was able to get him help right away. If he'd had been alone, I'm not sure what would have happened. Well, that's crazy, right? Because she followed her instincts, her intuition. She was able to save him. So our next story comes from, and this is a cute name here. It's a Velociraptor. So they say, I went to pick up my son from school to take him to a therapy appointment. I stopped to talk to the receptionist, and something told me our chat was important and that I needed to stand there and talk to her. So I did. When I regained consciousness, medics were loading me onto a stretcher into an ambulance. I had a full-on tonic-clonic seizure, passed out, and hit my head on the ground. I am not epileptic, had never had a seizure before, and haven't had one since. If I hadn't stood there talking for those 10 minutes and had left when I planned, I would have had that seizure behind the wheel going 80 miles per hour on the interstate to that appointment with my son in the car. Crazy, right? I'm seeing a trend here with seizures. Woo! So Odd Ghost 83 writes, I was 41 weeks pregnant with my second child, and there were no signs of contractions. I went to the hospital for a checkup because of regular bleeding, and the doctor kept telling me the baby was fine, there was nothing wrong, and I'd have to wait a week and come back to be able to be induced into labor. I felt panic and told the doctor I was scared of losing my baby. I didn't sleep well anymore because of that fear, and it only increased with every day that passed. It felt as if my daughter was trapped inside of me instead of me carrying her. Something told me I could not wait any longer. The doctor, reluctantly, made an appointment to induce labor that next day. My baby was born with her umbilical cord tightly wound around her neck. Luckily, she was quickly released from it and hadn't suffered a critical lack of oxygen during labor. I woke up with a blood transfusion in my arm and needed several bags of blood. Post note here from this author. My beautiful daughter is now 4 years old. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd followed the doctor's advice to wait. I had unexpected severe postpartum bleeding after my firstborn, and my second pregnancy ended in a miscarriage after 9 weeks. So that could explain my nervous feelings throughout my third pregnancy. Still, I'm glad I trusted my intuition instead of rationalizing it as hormones and previous bad experience. We are too, Odd Ghost. We are too. So let's talk a little about instinct and intuition, which are both human responses, but they do have different origins and purposes. Let's dig a little deeper into instincts for a minute. Instincts are a combination of genetics and environmental stimuli that emerge through a complex process of biological and physical influences. So the environmental stimuli contributes to animal species, including humans, developing adaptations in response to their environment, and some of these adaptations are behaviors that become instincts. In genetics, DNA codes for RNA, which codes for proteins, and most instincts are encoded in DNA. Our instincts are encoded in our DNA. Talk about natural born talents. I think that's pretty cool. What do you guys think? So, a good question is, where do human instincts come from? So, one of the explanations by which instincts is explained is by the law of natural selection. Research suggests natural selection causes small changes in the nervous system over time. These changes can bring about hereditary drives in organisms, which are then responsible for unconscious processes. So humans by birth have the natural instinct to survive. It's those who are best adapted to the environment that continue to survive and pass their characteristics, feelings, and behaviors to generations to come. Fun fact, animals and humans express an amazing array of instinctive behaviors that are often very complex. For example, the songbird's song can be surprisingly complex, yet some birds are actually actually born knowing the tune. Tell me, do you or do anyone you know have a talent or skill so natural you or they seem to have been born with the ability? I would love to hear about that in the comments if you guys would like to share. So, to give you an idea of how our instincts show up in our lives in common ways, here's what Enneagram experts have identified as the 3 key biological drives or instincts that influence our feelings and actions. They are self-preservation, sexual, and social. So self-preservation is the instinct to respond to perceived threats and needs. Social is the instinct to create social structures within communities, kind of what we're doing here. And sexual is the instinct related to primary relationships or coupling. Sexual instinct is interesting in the way that we tend to think of romantic love as an emotion, but it actually might be more of a survival instinct. Evolution has favored systems that lead us to fall in love because love increases the likelihood of attachment, improving our chances of survival and providing more resources for childbearing. Here's that for all you single people. Enneagram experts also explain that while one instinct tends to dominate in each of us, we're endowed with all 3 in varying measures. Each person has a dominant instinct, a less developed instinct, and a least developed instinct. This is called the instinctual stack. The instinctual stack. And it develops in childhood. So while it's mostly stable throughout life, it can shift in times of dramatic change due to trauma, stress. And fun fact, the strongest instinct in human beings is the need to look at the familiar. People are terrified of the unknown. In fact, some people would rather kill themselves than to look at new things. Now, being someone who has limited education in the field of psychology, when I discovered this, I had a light bulb moment. I mean, can you consider how this provides insight into the awareness of our mental health? It could really be related to instinctual things that can absolutely be addressed. Are you ready to dive into intuition? The word intuition comes from the Latin verb intuere, which is translated as to consider or from the late Middle English word intuit, to contemplate. Inture. Inture. Intuition is often experienced as a gut feeling or intrinsic knowing, whereas it actually comes from the brain's ability to process and compare information from the from the present with information from the past. So under stress, the brain is gathering and processing many facts, much of which is happening outside of our awareness. So these facts formed into patterns are then sent into high brain processing areas and compared to past experiences. So when you get that gut feeling, you're actually benefiting from intuition, a pattern match. And I don't know about you guys, but I really like patterns. This process of pattern matching allows the brain to make quick judgments based on similar situations. So, with this definition, I did find myself quickly questioning what about in situations when we know something outside of rational processing of the mind? Because I would say that's what a lot of us attribute intuition as being. So, I found some other factors to consider that may contribute to intuition. Subconscious processing. The brain's subconscious mind processes information that the conscious mind is unaware of, which can influence perceptions and judgment. Nonverbal communication. This is one of my favorites. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language can convey information that influences perceptions and judgments. You know, I'm telling people constantly, when I listen to you, I listen to your words, your energy, your body language, your facial expressions, your tone, taking all of that into consideration. And so I suppose maybe that's where, in my experience, the intuition kicks in personal interactions. Do you guys ever feel like you may be picking up on something that someone is not saying? That, my friends, is your intuition. How cool, huh? So, another factor that can contribute is evolutionary adaptation. Intuition may be an evolutionary adaptation. Say that one 3 times fast, y'all. Tongue twister for you. Maybe it's just a tongue twister for me. Anyway, intuition may be an evolutionary adaptation that helps humans respond to threats or opportunities without conscious analysis. Intuition also takes into account cross-indexing, which is the ability to see patterns in unconnected fields, thus elevating a person's intuitive skills. See here, with the instincts and the intuition, we're referencing patterns. And I'm also noticing a few references here about the intuition relating to consciousness and unconsciousness, subconsciousness. So it seems that though intuition is generally explained as something that's happening with the conscious mind, well, the mind is consciously allowing this to happen, but we are unconscious of it as it's happening on our subconscious. There are other levels in which this is happening that may be related to the unconscious mind. And so I would be really interested diving a little more into that with you guys. If you're interested, leave some comments below and let me know, and we'll look into that a little bit more. So here's another fun fact. Did you know intuition has been considered the highest form of intelligence, as it can handle complexity better than linear thinking? So what causes a person to be intuitive? Intuition takes into account multiple factors, experience, emotions, and patterns, and synthesizes them into a clear answer. One of the most common reasons why some people are more intuitive than others is because they actually listen to themselves instead of being driven by ideology. Ooh. I don't know about y'all, but that is something I pride myself in, is listening to my inner self. It's nice to sometimes take into account the opinions of those around us, but ultimately, you know that at the end of the day, it's that voice within you that has the best answer for yourself. And it's not to say that the people around us don't care and might not have good advice, but each of us is living within our own being. And whether we say yes or no, we know ourselves better than anyone around us does. And it's not a matter of being stubborn, it's not a matter of being defiant. It's a matter of being in tune with our inner being and knowing who we truly are, because we are the only ones that have to consistently live with ourselves our entire lives, right? So, this is not to say that we should completely ignore the analytical mind or critical thinking skills if we want to develop our intuition. We can instead focus on removing barriers that are blocking our intuition. What do you guys think? You want to know about some barriers that might be blocking your intuition? So this one I'm about to tell you, you're probably not going to like it, but this is a one major such barrier to intuition is codependency. So when you are in any type of codependent relationship or situation, this does not just refer to romantic relationships. This can be any relationship dynamic. You lose connection to your own feelings, desires, and self-trust because you put the other person's wants and needs before your own. And so here we might think of situations where we might have to put our needs on hold. There are times when that does happen, but this is referring more to the state of codependency where you're dependent on another person and you're dependent on their approval and wanting to people please. So, another way to further develop or deepen intuition is by allowing your imaginative right brain to flow. This can happen during activities such as meditation or guided visualization practices, visual arts such as drawing, painting, and writing, and physical activities that bring about a sense of mind-body balance, including yoga, tai chi, qigong, and the various types of martial arts. Other benefits to practicing these right brain activities are reduced risk of anxiety and depression, improved cognitive function, and higher quality of sleep and life. I don't know about y'all, but I am always looking for ways to improve my quality of sleep, because the quality of sleep, there has been research done that your quality of sleep directly affects your quality of life and it directly affects your cognitive function. And a lack of good quality sleep is actually highly attributed to anxiety and depression, because when you have a lack of high quality sleep, your brain is functioning at a lower level and it's functioning more poorly than if you were to get a really great night's sleep and wake up refreshed, like in those commercials where, oh, and they're stretching and the sun is shining on their face. And, that I got to tell you guys, the other morning, I actually woke up and had one of those moments. It's real. It's possible. I was laying there and I woke up just as the sun was coming up over the mountains. And the angle I was laying, it shined into the window and and it just was right on my face. And instead of being like this obnoxious, oh my gosh, the sun is in my eyes, it was like this soft white light. And I remember just cracking my eyes open and feeling it all over my face and my skin and my body and seeing my whole room bathed in this soft white light. And I got to tell y'all, I woke up with this immense sense of hope and inspiration, and I was ready to conquer the day. I was. So, to briefly recap what we've discussed here, instinct is defined as a primal survival mechanism that's ingrained in organisms, humans, and serves as a warning against danger. Instincts are inborn impulses or behaviors that arise in the body and proceed without training or experience. So they are born abilities. Whereas intuition is explained as a hallmark of human cognition that serves as a guiding light towards future opportunities. Intuition is the result of our experience and the development of our consciousness. It's an access point to our unconscious mind where our hunches are generated by rapidly sifting through past experience and cumulative knowledge. So I chose this as the subject for the first podcast because though we're not going to talk about instincts and intuition in every episode, it's going to be touched on it in some way because what I'm hoping to provide for you guys is that guiding light for you to help you shine the flashlight within, to help you tune in to what's happening within you, and to help you to be able to hear that more clearly, to hear your own inner voice more clearly, even when the chaos and the noise and the mind traffic is predominant. So I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed this episode and you got something out of it. So I'm really interested now in hearing your experiences with instincts and intuition. Anybody you know or your own stories. So please post in the comments section any stories you'd like to share and suggestions or feedback you have on the topics of this discussion. Let's get this conversation going. Subscribe to keep connected with future content and join the Facebook group, The North Star Within, for more direct interaction with myself, fellow listeners, and a community of like-minded people here to support one another. As Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home.